Hi, welcome to the YouTube channel of NORI. In this video, we are going to introduce you to the vision of NORI. We are going to introduce you to ourselves, the founders, and let you know what we have in store for 2026.
So the full name of the organization is NEONIM Research Institute, NORI for short. Now, NEONIM comes from, of course, their kind of proverb, NEONIM Osinho, which is essentially, if you lack knowledge, if you seek it, you can find it.
Yeah, exactly. And it inspires all the work that we do as a research center. So we do research and then we educate people based on our finding. So we are a startup think tank. We are non-partisan, we are interdisciplinary. So our goal is to bring together lots of professionals, lots of different professional backgrounds, perspectives on life, to share their perspectives on different topics and expertise on different topics to find solutions to problems. And we are inspired by Kwame Nkrumah's famous quote that we need African solutions to African problems. So essentially, we provide a space for African researchers, thinkers, to come, share their ideas, and find African solutions to African problems.
And I think the conceptualization here is that education is at the center of every solution. It is very based on the thinking that there's nothing that cannot be learned, there's nothing that cannot be designed from scratch. There's nothing that the society cannot rethink, reteach, and rebuild.
To introduce ourselves, I'm Andrea. I'm the visionary behind NORI. I got the idea in a very... to introduce ourselves, I'm Andrea. That's a dramatic way. During COVID, I had a bit of I got the idea crisis in a very... asking, like, what's the point of all this? How do we move forward? How do we solve these problems in these communities? And I just got this idea, this literal download, where I saw the facility in my mind. I wanted it to be in Ghana. I wanted it to be an African organization that operates globally, rather than a sort of Western organization that's coming in and solving African problems, so to speak. So I was very intentional in establishing it in Ghana, in having co-founders that are based in Africa, and our goal is to grow the membership and have members from all over the continent. And my background is I'm an educator. My speciality is actually early years. My PhD research is in the training of teachers, which is where the idea for the development of pedagogy comes in. And it's based on the idea that actually the biggest impact on education is actually well-developed pedagogies. The way, the values that underpin your teaching, lots of different things, from how you design your classroom to how you deliver the content, the way in which you talk to students, all of those things are pedagogical decisions that we make based on values that we hold as an individual and the type of world that we want to create. And so I'm very interested in how to improve education, and that was my curiosity. And my investigation led me to the fact that the most significant way to impact education is through the training of educators. So we have a very big part of the research center is based on educating educators.
And my name is Oliver Bakavomao. I like to think of myself as a legal constructivist, meaning that law must construct the kind of society and world that we can make, a world of our own making, a society of our, that we are shaped by our own values and systems and thinking. And I think perhaps I'm a perpetual skeptic to Andrea's vision, which is that it must pass the sniff test, it must make sense, and must believe that this is leading to reform rather than repetition. And I think on that, all those questions are answered for me. I think this is a project that I'm very enthusiastic about. I see where we want to do this. I think that it provides an avenue for us to be able to rethink, redesign, and reimagine boldly. And this is one of the things I'm excited about, what this entails. But also, more importantly, a lot of my work has also been in social activism, in connecting different segments of our society so that nobody is left behind. And it's important that when you're trying to recreate an image of a new society, that all parts of ourselves find themselves and see themselves in the kind of think tank we're trying to create. And this is very important to the civic education components of the work that we want to do.
You know, I really like what you said about the reproduction thing. It's such an important component because I think it's this book. Yes, this book, Reproduction in Education, Society and Culture. It's such an important book because it talks about the way in which mass education often reproduces more of what already exists in society. Hence why we're doing the Reconceptualizing Education project, is that mass education is by design reproducing more of what already exists, which is why oftentimes it feels like we're not really making progress. So everybody's getting qualifications, everybody's going to school. In Ghana, for example, we have free SHS, but there's no real impact in the country. Like there's no real reflection that the increase in education is having any significant impact in any of the communities. People are still building their houses in the same way, and you still may or may not lose your transmitter as you drive to your house, right? There is no real change in society, and that's one of the things that we're really trying to challenge, is how do we not continue to reproduce society as it is? What is the vision of society? Forever always talks about the idea that we need a utopia. If you're trying to achieve any sort of social change, you should have a utopia in mind, even if that utopia is unrealistic, and you should continue and be relentless in that pursuit until you effectively achieve that utopia. And for me, that utopia is an Africa where every single person thrives. Because I honestly, like growing up in the West, I honestly cannot fathom why, as a continent that is so rich, that has all of these resources. I remember when I was here, I think a couple of years ago, we grew corn, and the speed to which corn went from seed to harvest was insane to me. Like, we have such rich soil that there is no need for there to be such levels of inequality across the continent, and like I said, it's very achievable to change that in this lifetime.
And I think for me as well, the bigger problem I have with education as it currently exists is that there's a level of arrogance and certainty in what we already know and that we continue to propagate. But that education must be continuously experimental. It must continuously be questioned. It must continuously be different from different people. It must be adapted to the needs of different societies. And I think that's one of the core elements that I find missing in a lot of what we are doing. And particularly for us as developing countries, we become templates for repeating ideas of the West. So there's a constant need to reform, to form and shape us in the pathways that Western countries have taken, and through institutions like the World Bank and various global institutions that fund education projects in Ghana, that lead education thinking in various African countries. Is always trying to reproduce a Western template or templates from other societies, rather than trying to re-engineer and to question deeply, or even to create students and people that are consistently questioning even what is around us and what is received.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy is, in the West, we are trying to reform our education system. So there's a massive push on decolonizing education from the colonizers, right? But it's like we don't have that same urgency over here. And I had this conversation with my colleagues in London all the time, is as a developing nation, we have to consistently, like you said, be reviewing. So one of the frameworks that we used in our membership, it has this cycle where we're constantly reviewing, right? So we've done this. What is the impact? How can we review it? How can we make that improvement? And embedding that in pedagogy, embedding that in the way in which we educate children, to also constantly be reviewing. And also, children actually do that naturally. And I think the way that we sort of raise and educate children in Africa, we sometimes clip their wings a little bit too quickly. And that's also all part of the thing that we're trying to tackle through our membership, especially through our parents. But the vision is to establish a world-class research and educational facility here in Ghana, which will serve as our headquarters. But our work is going to be global. So we want to bring together researchers of African descent from all over the world to share their expertise through our memberships, which we'll explain later on. So all of the findings that we have as a research centre is going to be distilled into our curriculum that we're developing, which feeds into the Reconceptualising Education Initiative, which we're going to talk about later on. And we're going to distill that into the curriculum from early years right the way through to adult education, ensuring that everybody always has this up-to-date knowledge to empower them and equip them to go out in the world, into their communities, and to make change.
An essence of how we intend to reconceptualize education is also understanding the purpose of education. What is it to serve? We understand that education must be intimately linked with how we diagnose problems and how we solve those problems, what kind of citizens we become, and the way in which we relate to the environment and the world around us. So rather than disconnect a lot of the learnings that we get from classrooms and that do not have any social impact. We are very much conscious that education must have a social footprint, and that it must be reflected in the ways in which people engage with each other, engage with institutions, and also be able to grow and develop their communities. We had talked about how she got inspired by the idea, came up with it in 2020. Well, since 2020 till now, we have been in ideation, thinking through it, rethinking, pushing back on some elements of it, but really trying to figure out how we can be implementation ready. And throughout this period, we've had different kinds of events, which Andrea will speak a little bit about as well, where we've engaged, we've kind of surveyed, we've gotten feedback on different elements of the things we're trying to do. And we think that 2026 is a full year of implementation, where we go into more concrete programming that fleshes out a lot of the things that we've been working on.
Yes. So one of the initiatives we have is the Let's Link Up initiative, which is where we have conversations in a relaxed environment. So the first one that we did was the future we want and how to get it. And then the second event was People, Planet, Power, where we were talking about the environmental issues in Ghana, specific to do with galamsey and the impacts on things like democracy. Third event is going to be the launch of the Reconceptualizing Education Initiative, which is a long-term project about the education reform that we've been discussing. And the theme for the first year is the future of pedagogy. So we're doing the future of pedagogy in Ghana. So previously I mentioned that we're doing context-specific solutions, right? So we're doing the future of pedagogy in Ghana, and then we're going to do future of pedagogy in other places, and then identify the common themes and distill that into the curriculum framework that we're developing.
For this year, our big goal is to launch the Reconceptualizing Education Initiative. It's an initiative that is focusing on questioning what type of education we want for children to be able to thrive within our society, what kind of education do citizens need to be able to be full and active citizens, and what kind of focus can we have on pedagogy, the foundational principles that we want embedded in that, what do we want to prioritize in terms of that, and how do we deliver pedagogy.
So our exploration of pedagogy, as Oliver said, is the foundational principles that underpin all the elements of our teaching, the type of society that we want to build, how we want everyone to see themselves as existing in the world. And I think it's really important because statistics show that Africa is the only place in the world that doesn't have a declining population, where 70% of the citizens are under 30 years old. So we have real potential here to shape things on a global scale, and we can't continue to reproduce more of what already exists in society. So we are asking the question, what is it that we actually want for our education system? What is it that we want for our society? And how can we reconceptualize pedagogy to reflect that? How can we make sure that we're not reproducing more of what already exists in society? And linking back to the idea of utopia that I mentioned before, what is that utopia? Where do we want to go as a society in 10 years? What is the best possible solution for Ghana? And how can we, through pedagogy, through education, in the informal and formal education settings, achieve that? As I said previously, we're trying to build a global community of researchers, experts, but also parents, educators, and just people who care about the development of Africa and Africans on a global scale. Becoming a member now, you are helping us to shape the research centre to lay the foundation for the work that we're going to do. We have three main tiers of membership. We have the Umoja membership, which is our basic membership, and that allows you access to our mailing list, to our library that we are cultivating. The library is going to consist of the experts in our community sharing their ideas, interviews that we have, exclusive interviews, exclusive content, publications, etc. It will also give you 10% discounts on products and services. So we provide a range of consultancy services as a research centre, and you get 10% discount on that. You become a member of the NORI community, so you get access to all of the members in the community, and also invitation to membership meetings, helping us to shape the research centre, the direction that we're going in, helping us to make executive decisions, etc.
Our intermediate level of membership is the Umeja membership, which gives you access to all the packages that exist within the Umeja membership, in addition to, which is what Andrea has explained, the mailing list, access to our library, but also 15% discounts on all kinds of services, which includes consulting services, training services, and also brainstorming sessions that we designed that's specifically suited to your work, your organization, and the kind of issues that you're focusing on. Then, of course, we have the monthly community meetings, which are based on topics that are voted on by the community that we'll speak to and design programs around it and research around. Then we have the expert-led quarterly meetings, which you would have access to, in addition to the free membership to any working group, as well as invitation to membership meetings.
Our final package is the NIA membership package, and it's our premium package that we have specifically designed for parents and educators. It's underpinned by the Intent program, which I have designed based on my thesis, and we take you through developing intentional strategies for nurturing children's learning and development, either as a parent or as an educator. So there's an initial 12-week program where we go through the Intent framework, which I'll make a separate video about. And then you also get 9 months follow-up support with implementation and monitoring of those programs. As we mentioned before, one of the things that we have to do when revolutionizing education is to continually monitor and continually make adjustments. So we actually support you in going through that process, whether as a parent or as an educator. And the goal actually is to have parents and educators to come together to work together to nurture children's individual genius so that everybody can reach their full potential and effectively we can thrive as a community. And on top of that, you also get all of the packages of the Umija community that Oliver discussed.
Thank you for your interest in this conversation and willing to be part of this journey and exploring and being curious about what all of this is about. Feel free to drop any questions that you have on this.
Also, consider joining our mailing list or becoming a member, contacting us on WhatsApp, and just continue to engage us in the conversation. Thank you for your time. Thank you.